Hi, welcome to Yoga Selection. My name is Rod. Our focus today, back releasing yoga poses, will be using a chair, 2 blocks, a belt and a blanket. Let's get started today in a version of Ardha Mukha Virasana. Normally we do the pose with feet together, knees apart, but let's today go feet together and knees together. So your big toes touching, your inner thighs, inner knees touching, your hips back onto your heels. And then as we normally do, we'll walk the hands out and away from the knees. Let the forehead come down towards the floor, a moment there to settle. Our usual arm action, the hands are pressing down with the elbows straight, and we're working to move the pubic bone away from the navel. As we press our hips down, the pubic bone away from the navel, we draw the outer thigh creases back. And normally when we make those actions with the knees apart, the thigh bones release down, and we get a nice length and release through the lumbar spine, particularly the front of the lumbar spine. However, in this position with the knees together, the root of each thigh bone, the bit nearest to the pelvis, is less capable of releasing down, dropping down. It's in the way, in a sense. So we don't get that same length through the lumbar spine. Notice though, with the thighs, potentially the knees, pressing up into the chest, how the whole rib cage is raised, lifted up and into the skin of the back. So the spine itself and the paraspinal muscles that run parallel to the spine, they're lifting and spreading in an outward direction. It gives a really nice release to the mid-back, upper back. And we can build on that by subtly adjusting the shoulders, keeping the index finger bases pressing down. We're turning the deltoid muscles, the ones on the sides of the shoulders, in an outward direction, the outer armpits in a downward direction. Make sure that you keep your elbows lifting. All right, and then let's release. We'll stay kneeling. Come up. Let's take our blanket and let's begin with our blanket as we would use it for a shoulder stand, for Savangasana, so in this fold. And then we'll fold it lengthways in half. So we've got this shape, a blanket. And then we place the blanket onto the tops of the thighs. Make sure that you've got the folded edge facing in towards the pelvis. With both hands then we're going to bring the blanket right up into the thigh creases there, where the legs and the pelvis meet. Now we're going to adjust the knees. Keep your feet together, hands down to the floor either side of the mat, and widen your knees. Bring them apart. The distance between the knees, roughly the width of your rib cage. And then with both hands, firmly pull the blanket back into the thigh creases. Even with the hands pressed down onto that blanket, lift the abdomen, the abdominal flesh, out and over the blanket. And then one hand at a time, bring the hands back to the floor. And again, walk the hands back out. Let the forehead release to the floor. A moment just for the pose to settle and for you to compare the different sensation that's occurring here with this adjustment to the pose, bringing the knees apart and placing the blanket there. So the big one is that now the thigh bones are able to release down, and the blanket being there actually presses them down, gives them a little bit more of a firm adjustment. So long as the torso, that abdominal area, is pressing down onto the blanket. So for that reason, we don't want to be too active with the hands here. Keep your elbows straight, don't allow them to drop, but just ease off a little on the contact of the hands to the floor so that you can feel the weight of the torso pressing down onto the blanket, and the blanket pressing down onto the thigh bones. And when the thigh bones release, particularly that section of the thigh bone right up near the hip socket, when it releases down, there's a nice natural length that comes through the lower back, through the front of the lumbar spine. You might even find at this stage that the hands need to just slide out a little bit away from the knees to accommodate the space that we're creating there at the front of the lumbar spine. So 2 versions of Ardha Mukha Virasana forwards. Both of them nice back releasing poses. This one probably a little bit more releasing for the lower back. The first one more the mid and upper back. Let's then come out of the pose, walk your hands back. We'll put the blanket off to the side. We're going to use the chair. Potentially you might want to put the blanket on top of the chair just to give the front of the pelvis a little bit of padding. For some people that will be necessary. I'll be fine just using the chair as it is. And normally we use the yoga chair like this, but today we'll use it in its folded up position. Just need to check with your particular yoga chair which direction the chair is most likely to stay in this folded position. For the type of chair that I'm using, having the seat of the chair where I sit when the chair is upright, having that facing out from the body makes the chair feel more stable. For others, though, it might be the other way. You can try both and make sure that the chair remains in this folded upright position, because we're going to wedge the top of the chair into the front of the pelvis. It needs to be right up where the pubic bone is. Notice there's an angle on the chair, but that angle will be different according to your height. For taller people, the chair is going to be closer to the feet, and for people not as tall, the chair is going to be further out away from the feet. We can walk the hands down the frame of the chair. Stop 2/3 of the way with the hands down the frame of the chair. And then let's adjust the feet of the chair. We're just going to slide the feet of the chair a little bit closer in towards your feet so that the chair is really securely, really firmly wedged into that thigh crease area there, right at the tops of the legs. So slide the chair in to the point where you can actually lean on the chair with your hips being directly over your ankles. Still with the hands 2/3 of the way down the chair, straighten your elbows, lift your head and look across the room. Make sure that you're leaning your body weight onto the chair, and as you do so, the chair presses back into the front of the pelvis and the root of each thigh bone. So where the thigh bone joins the pelvis, it holds it back securely. And then with our hands, as we press into the frame of the chair, we can, with a concave spine, lengthen the spine. So we're lengthening the front of the spine, from the pubic bone to the navel, from the navel to the sternum bone, the breastbone, right the way to the chin there as the head lifts and we're looking across the room. So we've lengthened the front of the spine, we're containing the back of the spine, and then we maintain that as we start to bend the elbows. Do it slowly, carefully, keep pressing into the frame as the elbows bend, and that pressure of the hands pressing into the frame makes sure that you retain the length there at the front of the spine as you release into the pose. And then at this point, the hands can walk down the frame of the chair to your capacity. The chest comes in towards the seat of the chair, and then either just staying there with the hands holding the frame. If your back is feeling like it's releasing well into the pose, you can fold the arms and with your hands you hold the elbows. Let the back ribs move towards the seat of the chair. Let the front ribs descend downwards towards the floor. All right, and then we'll walk our hands back up the frame of the chair. And let's put the chair off to the side. We'll take a block. The block will be for our legs. We're going to place the block like this, as high as possible on the inner leg. It's right up in that inner groin area. Don't have the block too narrow, don't have it too wide. It's that mid-width there that we've got the block. So we're gripping the side edge block there between both legs. You can still walk with little steps as the block's in position so that we can come down with our hands to the floor and then slide your hands up to the wall so that your thumbs and index fingers touch the wall. You've got your wrists at shoulder width, your fingers are turned out to allow the thumbs and index fingers to make contact with the wall. And then pressing your thumbs into the wall as you then move back to Ardha Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog pose. I'll give you a few moments just to arrive in the pose and establish the correct distance with the feet away from the hands. And then let's focus on the block. So we want the block to lift up. But notice when we go to lift the block up, the heels tend to lift. So it's not the heels that lift, keep them neutral, but lift the block up and away from the knees. Check it again, it's not the heels that lift, it's the block. Lift it away from the knees. Once you've got that lift in the block, press your thumbs into the wall and move the block back into the space there towards the center of the room. And then we'll take it one step further. So again, it's not the heels lifting, so keep the heels neutral, but lift the pubic bone up and away from the block. It's the pubic bone that lifts, not the heels. Once you've got that lift in the pubic bone, press your thumbs into the wall and move the pubic bone up and back towards the center of the room. We're lifting the block, lifting the pelvis, and as we do so, lengthening the lower back. The front of the lumbar spine, it lifts up. The sides of the lumbar spine lift up. Evenly, the back of the lumbar spine lifts up. Okay, and then we'll release down. Knees to the floor and hips back to the heels. And Ardha Mukha Virasana. Knees apart, feet together, and letting the forehead release down towards the floor. Okay, and then come up. Let's stay with our block. We're going to keep the block between the legs, but we'll move it lower down now. So we've just had the block this configuration. Let's make it more narrow now. We'll turn it this way, and we'll place the block right on the knee joint. Squeezing the block there, gripping the block with both knees. The block is right on the knee joint. And then we'll reverse back so that we're leaning back into the wall. You've got your ankles roughly a thigh bone's length, a little bit less than a thigh bone's length distance away from the wall. You're leaning back so that the back of your pelvis is in contact with the wall, the backs of the shoulders are in contact with the wall. Today's version of the pose, we're going to keep our hands onto our thighs. During that transition time when you're bending your knees and sliding down the wall, potentially you'll need to bring your hands back to the wall there, either side of the hips. So squeezing the block with the knees, let's start to bend the knees and slide down the wall. Stop with your hips a little bit higher than the knees. And now if you haven't already got them there, bring the hands onto the tops of the thighs. With your feet, press the big toe bases down and the outer heels down while squeezing the block. So big toe bases, outer heels press down, squeeze the block, and press the back of the pelvis firmly into the wall. Chest lift up and shoulders roll back. The hands pressing down helps to keep the chest and the spine lifting. And then to come out of the pose, again, potentially the hands may need to come back to the wall either side of the hips, and we push ourselves back up to the wall. So therapeutic for the lower back, just what we did there, getting that length through the lower back. You'll find that there'll be less of a curvature in the lumbar spine. The lower back sits flatter to the wall. Let's look to really emphasize that action in this second go at the pose. So hands either to the thighs or to the wall, slide down, hips a little higher than the knees. We're gripping the block, we're pressing the back of the pelvis firmly into the wall. We're pressing our hands firmly into the thighs. It gives us the leverage to lift the spine up. So feet pressed down, hands pressed down. We're pressing the back of the pelvis into the wall, and as if you're trying to lift the wall with the back of the pelvis. Press with the feet, press with the hands, and as if lifting the wall in an upward direction with the back of the pelvis. Roll the shoulders back, lift the chest up, and then push yourself back up the wall, legs straight. We'll remove the block. Let's take the chair again. Chair Malasana. We'll sit in the chair, far back in the chair, hips coming right back into the frame region of the chair. Have your feet slightly wider than the front legs of the chair, make sure that your shin bones remain vertical. Common here for the feet to walk too far back. Then when we come forwards, it really tips the pose. So having the feet directly, the ankles directly under the knees helps to keep your pelvis anchored. We want that. We want the pelvis to be held in one direction, the spine to be moved in an opposite direction. So with that in mind, let's come forwards. Bring the hands down to the floor, fingertips to the floor there in front of the feet, between the feet, and pause. So immediately we feel that length at the back of the spine. We also want to get an even length through the front of the spine as the hands press down, as if they're just stretching the floor back towards the chair so that we can start to lengthen from the pubic bone through the navel, through the sternum bone. Keeping that length there at the front of the spine, we'll start to bend the elbows, let the neck relax, let the head hang, keep the feet firm to the floor. Make sure that your shoulders are fitting neatly between the inner knees. From there we can fold the arms, hands holding the elbows. Big toe bases press down, heels press down, and then to take the pose that bit further, we reach through the front legs of the chair. Most yoga chairs will have a crossbar between the back legs of the chair. If you don't have a crossbar, hold the back legs. Preferably though you've got that crossbar, hold it. Grip firmly with the fingers. And then lift your head and look across the room as you lift your head. And in doing that, the back muscles activate. It's as if you're trying to break the grip of the fingers. Resist with the fingers, but as you lift your head and look across the room, it's as if you're trying to pull the fingers away from the crossbar of the chair. So that we get that firm traction through the lower back, not just the back of the spine, but also the front of the spine. Move your chest down as it moves forwards, looking across the room. Okay, and then we'll just undo the pose gradually, bringing the hands one at a time back to the floor there in front of the feet, and then keeping that length at the front of the spine as we bring one forearm up onto one knee and press down, the other forearm press down, lifting the spine up as we return back to our neutral position. From there we can stand up, move the chair off to the side. Make sure that you've got room there either side of your mat. For Supta Padangusthasana, you'll need a belt, potentially a blanket for the head. Make sure that your chin and forehead are level. Your belt doesn't need to be buckled into a loop here. You can use the belt undone or a large loop. Try not to have a small loop in the belt. If you do, adjust the buckle to make a larger loop. And then we'll do Pavanmuktasana. First of all, bending the right knee up into the chest, interlock the fingers around the head of the right shin bone, bend the elbows and hug the knee towards the chest. And as we do that, we can feel the lower back lengthening, particularly the right side of the lower back. And then as the hands pull the knee towards the chest, resist back with the knee against the hands. Feel how that helps to lengthen the front of the spine. And then we'll place our belt around the ball of the right foot and then raise the right leg up towards the vertical position. I say towards the vertical position. If you've got tighter hamstring, the leg will be angled more towards the wall. That's fine. Just make sure that your knee is straight. It's unimportant how close your hands get to your right foot. It's more important how close the backs of your shoulders get to the floor. So with the elbows slightly bent, press the backs of the shoulders downwards. Touch the floor with the backs of the shoulders. Notice how that gets a firmer contact with the belt, pressing down into the foot. But resist that. With the foot, press back up into the belt. And pressing the foot into the belt, you can move the right outer hip towards the wall so that the hips get level. Otherwise, the right hip tends to slant upwards towards the rib cage. We can move the right thigh bone, that section near the hip socket, towards the wall. Again, it helps to keep the hips level. And pressing the foot into the belt, we move the back of the right hip towards the wall. Left thigh press down, left foot press into the wall as we now bring the belt into the right hand, left arm out to the side, wrist at shoulder height. I've got my palm facing up. You can work palm down or palm up. Today, having the palm facing up. And then, without the left thigh lifting, we'll bring the right leg down and out to the side. Let's today bend the right elbow so that it makes contact with the floor. Another time we could work with the arm straight, but for today, having the elbow to the floor helps to support the weight of that right leg. It's less inclined there than to be like a seesaw that gets tipped downwards. We want the left side of the body to stay anchored. Resist with the belt, press with the foot into the belt, and move the right outer thigh crease towards the wall, the right hip socket towards the wall, the right buttock, it moves towards the left buttock. The left thigh presses down, the back of the left hip presses down, the right elbow presses down, and that helps your chest so that the right chest can lift up, the left chest moves away from the right chest, and the back of the left shoulder anchors to the floor. We'll go to the third variation now. Raise the leg up towards the vertical. Change hands. Hold the belt with the left hand. Bring the right arm out to the side. Wrist at shoulder height, palm facing up. And then we'll turn onto the outside of the left leg. The little toe comes right the way to the floor as the right leg comes over and across to the left side. Again, bend the left elbow down to the floor to help support the weight of the right leg. Bring initially the right leg parallel to the floor, but then just ensure that your right shoulder can remain in contact with the floor. The left elbow helps there. Left elbow pressing down, left chest lift up, right chest away from left chest, back of the right shoulder down to the floor. And then we'll raise the leg back up and we'll change legs. So same 3 variations now on the left side. You may need to shuffle in a little closer to the wall to get that firm contact with the right foot to the wall. Fingers interlocked around the head of the left shin, hugging the knee towards the chest. The left thigh crease, deepen it back into the body, away from the chest. The left outer thigh crease towards the wall. And then the belt under the ball of the left foot, take the left leg up. Backs of the shoulders to the floor. Make sure that the left knee is straight. The left big toe base actively lifting up. The tallest part of the pose, the left big toe base. Left outer hip towards the wall. The left thigh bone where it joins the pelvis towards the wall. The back of the left hip towards the wall. Belt then into the left hand, right arm out to the side. And then without the right thigh lifting, pressing the right thigh down, we bring the left leg down and out to the side, elbow bent to the floor. Resist with the belt, press the foot into the belt, left outer thigh crease towards the wall, left hip socket towards the wall, left buttock towards the right buttock, right thigh press down, back of the right hip down, left elbow press down, right chest away from the left chest, back of the right shoulder to the floor. Bring the leg up, change hands. We'll come up across to the right side now. Turn onto the outside of the right leg as the left leg comes over. Let the back of the left hip lift right off the floor, but keep the back of the left shoulder to the floor. The right leg remains active, the kneecap firm. Ideally the foot pressing firmly into the wall. The right elbow here, we can press against the floor with it to help turn the chest. There should be that sense of the pelvis turning in one direction towards the right and the chest turning in the opposite direction, up, over and across to the left. And then we'll raise the leg back up. Bring both of the knees now into the chest, fingers interlocked around the heads of the shin bones. For the moment, with the head to the floor, hug the knees towards the chest. Feel how that lengthens the back of the spine. Particularly that area where the spine joins into the pelvis, it gets a good length. In balance with that, we resist with the hands, but press back against the hands or the wrists with the knees, and it helps to lengthen the front of the spine. So we get an even length through the back and the front of the lumbar spine. Keeping the back waist to the floor, lift your head and bring your face towards your knees. And then release down, moving closer to the wall. Ideally your sitting bones right to the wall. We'll need to make room either side here of our mat. We're going to be twisting our legs out to the side, but our starting position, getting the sitting bones in as close as possible to the wall with the legs up the wall, knees straight to begin with. You can just have your arms by your sides whilst you're getting in that direction. Tighter hamstrings, you won't be able to get all the way into the wall without the back of your pelvis lifting. Get in as close as you can, but retaining the ability to keep the back of the pelvis to the floor. Where the pelvis and the spine meet, just allow that area to release down to the floor. And then we'll bring our arms more actively out to the sides. If you've got equipment there, as I did, you just got to move it out of the way. Have your palms facing up, your wrists level with the shoulders, and then bend your knees back to your chest. Slide the feet down the wall. Keep your feet flat to the wall, the soles of the feet in contact with the wall. And then both feet, we'll just walk them over and across in a circular arc towards the right side. The back of the left hip will lift up. Move the right thigh crease towards the wall. Keep the left knee to the right knee. Ideally, they'll make contact. The back of the left hip needs to lift up in order to maintain that contact. And then we'll walk the feet back up, over and across to the left side. As the knees come down to the floor, make sure that the right shoulder stays to the floor. The knees will be slightly lower than the ankles here. The feet stay up the wall, maybe 10 centimetres, half a foot or so off the floor. The left knee potentially comes right the way down to the floor. Not if that means lifting the right shoulder off the floor. Left thigh crease towards the wall. Left chest towards the ceiling. Right waist and right shoulder back down towards the floor. And then we'll walk the feet back up to where they started. And we can roll to the side. To come up, let's look at two versions of Shavasana. We'll work with a prone Shavasana. First of all, really nice one for releasing the back. We'll use today, we can do this several ways, but we're trying to use minimal props here today. So we'll use just one blanket and we'll start with it as our shoulder stand shape, but we'll then turn that into a broad three-fold blanket. Try to fold the blanket as neatly as possible. We're looking for this configuration. We'll then place the blanket towards the end of the mat. If you don't like to have your face on the floor, you might want to move your mat a little bit away from the floor. So we've got the three-fold blanket and it's running lengthways on the mat. It's right up the far end of the mat. Important because we're going to be lying on our front. We want to make sure we've allowed enough room for our legs to extend back with the knees straight. Important that you can locate the iliac crest bones. Sometimes they're called the hip bones. Those bones that jut out there at the front of the pelvis off to the side. You can just feel with your fingertips where those bones are. We want those bones to make contact with the edge here of the blanket, not off it, not on it, but right level with the edge of the blanket. So we're going to lie down over it, and you can then just fine-tune the position of the pelvis. You can even just feel with your fingertips where they are relative to the edge of the blanket. And then we'll bring our forehead to rest down onto the forearms. You've got your forearms there folded under the forehead. Now for taller people, the face easily comes past the edge of the blankets. For people not as tall, potentially the blankets might be getting up under the throat or the chin or even the nose and the face. Try to, with the forearms, just bunch that blanket out of the way so that you have the ability to be able to breathe without the blanket lifting your head. Forehead is resting onto the forearms. So long as we've positioned those iliac crest bones level to the edge of the blanket, we get a nice release with the tailbone in a downward direction, and it takes a lot of pressure off that lumbar area. So a really good way of releasing, softening the muscles there, particularly if you're prone to compression in that lower region where the spine joins into the pelvis. Make sure that the backs of the thighs are staying broad. We can just one leg at a time keep the knees straight, but lift each leg and turn the inner leg upwards away from the floor. And then as we bring the leg back down, the front of the thigh is turned towards the center of the mat. We can do one leg and then the other leg, making sure that the inner thighs stay lifting up as the legs relax, the backs of the thighs broadening from inner leg towards outer leg as the legs relax. So a nice way of doing Shavasana, a nice way of releasing muscles that may have tensed up around the sacrum area and lower back area. Sort of pose that we could stay in for an extended period of time. We're just getting a taste of it today, getting used to the setup, feeling its effect there on the lower back region. But then let's come out of the pose and we'll set up for our final version of Shavasana. We'll adjust that blanket so that we can use it for our head. We'll need just a half fold blanket. So we'll come back to our original shoulder stand fold, fold it in half. We're using that as a pillow. We'll bring the chair back onto the mat and we'll use that as a support for our calves. Lying on our back, calves up onto the seat of the chair. If you've got a metal seat, potentially you may want a blanket there for the calves. The thigh bones have a gentle angle away from the body. The knees are not directly above the hips but slightly angled forwards. If the back of your pelvis is not easily reaching the floor, for shorter people that might be the case, you put an additional blanket in between the floor and the back of the pelvis. As you breathe out, that area where the spine and the pelvis meet, release down into the floor. Again, it has a nice softening effect on that region of the body. Get a good contact there. You can feel it where the sacrum presses to the floor. With each exhalation, encourage that downward release. Notice it also has a subtle spreading effect on the lower back and the back of the pelvis. As we breathe out, it releases down, broadens as it releases down. Make sure that as you inhale, that release is retained. Breathing out, releasing the back of the pelvis down. Breathing in, releasing the back of the pelvis down. Good for releasing the lower back. Also that area at the base of the pelvis, the pelvic floor area. You can feel where the sitting bones are there. As you breathe out, it's as if the sitting bones very gently just broaden away from one another. It's a nice sensation. You can feel how it diffuses a lot of muscular tension. Breathing out, the sitting bones spreading. breathing in without that slight tipping of the pelvis. So we want to avoid the sitting bones tipping towards the floor with the in-breath. Smooth, soft inhalation, smooth, soft exhalation, allowing the lower back to completely release and soften. Okay, and then to come out of the pose, we'll bring our knees towards the chest, open the eyes, and roll to the side to come up. Thank you for practicing with Yoga Selection.